Let's say it's kind of a very sharp opening, but I think what we look at is kind of somewhere in between, so that if you start the opening, you won't necessarily be completely out of book, and you won't have to take significant risks right from the start. You will have the chance to play something of a safe side of the night off, where it will still be a fun opening, guys. So होपफुली आज आईपीएल की वजह से लोग कोई तो आएगा होपफुली आज. लेट्स सी. एंड गाइस, डू लेट मी नो इफ यू कैन हियर मी एंड इफ यू कैन सी मी, एंड देन आई विल बिगिन. Guys, if you can hear me and if you can see me, do let me know, and then we can begin. Great. So Harshal, is everything okay? Can you see and hear me? If everything is okay, do let me know. Then we can start. Hi Rajkumar. Hi Harshal. I don't know, Harshal. I have absolutely no clue because I have not followed the games. So I don't really have an idea about who would win. Great. Thanks for letting me know, Rajkumar. So, guys, uh, like e4 is the sharper way to play for white. I mean, he can play d4, he can play c4, but and even knight f3. But most of these actually lead to some sort of um, a long struggle where white is trying to have a small advantage. But e4 is the only one where every move counts. In many variations, if white plays e4 and if you miss a single move, if you play a bad move, it can often lead to disaster. And the only way for black to play, which is safe, is e5. But this is not what we are going to look at right now. So we're going to look at c5, which is basically a very sharp way to play. Black is trying to create an imbalance on the first move itself, which is, well, not so common. So you can see how white has pushed his pawn in front of his king, let the bishop out, preparing to push the knight as well, and then quickly castle. And black is following a completely different strategy. He's not really bothered about his king right now. You can see all his pieces are not ready to come out yet, and he's basically kind of focusing on exchanging his c pawn for white's d pawn. So the advantage it gives black is that he will have an extra pawn in the center. After these two pawns are exchanged, he will have two pawns in the center while white will only have one, and that will give him greater center control and long-term chances in the game. What does white have in return? White will have a development advantage. He will have a central piece on d4, usually a knight, and he will have some attacking chances which black might have to defend against. However, the lines I'm going to recommend for you will actually not give white any decent attacking chances. In fact, you will have some attacking chances here. So here, of course, knight f3 is the main move. We will, of course, look at one game where white also plays c3. Now this is a solid way for white to play, so we will have a look at it. So knight f3 is the main line, and now you play d6. So this is the knight off. Basically, you have pushed these two pawns, and you're trying to just kind of prevent e5 with the d6 pawn. And now you will try to kind of develop your pieces one by one. Now that your pawns are well settled, you will focus on the pieces now. Hi Pratik. So now white will play d4. Of course, that is the main line. He can, of course, just play knight c3 here, and after knight f6, d4, it will just transpose. So let's just try to look at d4 directly. And now, of course, black's strategy is to exchange the c pawn for the d pawn, so that makes a lot of sense. And now knight f6. So because we have pushed the pawn here, there is no e5 available for white, and black develops the knight on the king side with tempo, attacking the e4 pawn, and white defends it with the knight going to c3. As we know, knights should be developed before bishops. This makes a lot of sense. All the knights are developed. Now only this knight needs to be developed. So this is following opening principles for both sides. And now, because many times the black queen will go to c7, and also he might like to play some moves like knight d7, maybe g6 e6, one of these moves. So a6, it makes a lot of sense to kind of prevent any knight b5 possibility and also bishop b5 possibility for white. And this way he kind of asks white what he wants to do. And this is where the main system for Najdorf arises. This is the starting position of the opening. Until then, until here, it is all well known and it is kind of played automatically, let's say. Hi Hussein. E5 when Harshal, when E5. So after A6, white has many systems. He can play bishop to E2, he can play bishop to E3, he can play bishop to G5, he can play H3, and there are many systems for white. So today we look at most of them, one game in all of these systems, because black needs to know what to do against all of these. So we'll start with the move bishop to G5. Now I start with this because this is the most dangerous for white, and I'm going to recommend um, a solid repertoire for black, because if you try to enter the sharp variations, if white is well prepared, you will need to know immense amount of theory, and that is not really what you're looking to do. You want a position where, of course, you need to know something, but we are looking to play a position where we know the plans, we know the strategy, and not necessarily 100 moves of theory. So that is the basic idea behind this. Yes, Pratik, it does transpose to that sometimes. That is true. So now, after bishop g5, I'm going to show one of my games that I played against a 2200 rated player this year in February in France, and I managed to win that game. And I could have won it much quicker, and I will try to look at how I could have improved my play, but the opening play was pretty much perfect. So now I played e6. So why do we play e6? Black is threatening to capture on f6 and double your pawns, and that will be a completely different pawn structure altogether. And then the structure we are trying to follow would not arise on the board. And e6 makes a lot of sense, because if white were to capture now, you can capture with the queen. So you're retaining your pawn structure, you're not allowing white to capture and spoil your pawn structure here. So now f4. Now this makes a lot of sense, because white has to attack. This is the characteristic principle white is going to follow. If he did not want to attack, he would not be playing 1e4 and the main line of the Najdorf. If he's playing the main line, he will definitely go for an attack. Yes, of course, control f5, control d5. For example, here e5 looks like a move, but this kind of weakens the d5 square. So you can imagine bishop f6, queen f6, knight d5, queen d8, and suddenly all these knights look good. Even this knight can go to e2, for example, and then head to c3. So then white will have a strong hold on the d5 square. This is what black will try to avoid if possible. So we play e6 because this knight is under pin. We do not want to allow white to kind of gain control of the d5 square. This is kind of the very important element in the Najdorf, the d5 square. And now f4, and because white may be threatening a move like e5 here, we play bishop to e7, breaking the pin, and also setting up some tactics sometimes, for example. And now white plays queen to f3. Now this is the most traditional way to develop for white. Hi Shreyash, I'm glad you're enjoying the course. Rajkumar, if bishop takes f6, let's try to analyze. I think what he will do is he will maybe even go queen d8 back. So let's say white tries to develop with bishop e2. First of all, you can start with knight c6, putting pressure here. So now it's already very difficult for white to decide what to do. I think he has to capture here, castle. And now you have two options. You can play queen d8, bishop e7 and castle. Or you can play queen d8, g6, bishop g7 and castle. Or you can also just play bishop e7 and just castle quickly. And then later on you will kind of maybe go for d5, maybe c5, a5, all these moves based on how white plays it. So with the two bishops, I think black is already better here. You can see all these weak squares, and imagine a move like, let's say, castles and d5, and already the bishop is coming to b4. So this looks very good for black actually. I would much better be black here. Hi Krith. Yeah, Harshal, d5 square is very important in the Najdorf. You can allow white to take control of it, but it depends. It can only happen in specific situations. In this structure, you cannot allow white to do that, because here the knight is already in a pin, and white will be much better here. So e6 is the best move. And after f4, bishop e7, and now queen f3. Now this is the main way for white to develop, because he is trying to castle on the queen side. Okay, Shreyas, I will have a look at it. I will have a look at it. The Sicilian Pelican. Uh, that's great, Krit. So now after queen f3, actually during this game, here queen c7 is the main line, and we might just transpose to this, um, because I was afraid that my opponent would have prepared something against this. That's why I kind of deviated with h6. Now I also recommend this, but what you can do is you can start with queen c7, and after castles, knight d7, and after, let's say, g4, you can play h6. So I would suggest you to follow this move order, but in the game we will pretty much reach the same, but through a different move order. I was trying to just confuse my opponent. So h6, bishop h4, and now queen c7. So as I mentioned, the queen will go to c7. This is the perfect square for the queen. Sometimes it does go to b6, but usually it is perfectly placed on c7, on the c file where the white king will castle, and also off the d file where the white rook will be. So it kind of perfectly aligns with this, and that's why a6 was important. Krit Panali is busy. She is not free right now. And usually what happens is that if we stream together, then we might not have time to, for example, have two streams in a day. If we stream separately, then we can put out more videos for you guys, and that way you will have more content to learn from. If we stream together, sometimes we cannot find enough time to stream 2 times a day, and it can kind of, like, you will miss out on some extra material. That's why. Sure, Shreyas. Hi Abhishek. So today we're looking at the Najdorf, anybody who's just joining, and this is a very interesting opening for black. So now guys, white will castle, of course, queenside castles, and this makes a lot of sense because, well, he's going for the attack. And now we play knight d7. So this is the structure we are going to keep our pieces in. Now this does look passive, but you have to remember that to attack the king, you need an open file, and black is the side which has the open file right now. White doesn't have it. He will try to create it with g4 or maybe bishop d3, but he doesn't have it right now, and that's why the system is very solid for black. And here my opponent played g4. Now this looks very scary. I mean, white is pushing all his pawns, and of course we should be scared, but actually not. Sure, Krith, you can let me know. You can also email us if you want. The email is available on the website. Harshal, we are not going to castle on the king side, so don't worry. We won't castle on the king side because white is attacking there. So it makes no sense to castle on the king side. A move like this is pretty much suicide after g5. I can imagine this being completely lost. Even pawn takes or just bishop takes, both seem completely lost after rook g1 and bishop h6. So of course this is just suicide, not this. Rajkumar, knight c6 is a completely different system. First of all, it kind of transposes to different openings somehow. And also, if you play knight c6 in this position, you need this knight to be defended, because here black's counterplay will somehow is usually on the c file, is usually against the e4 pawn, and both of these things are blocked by knight c6. First of all, you block the c file, which is not really what black wants. Second, the knight on d7, let's say, if white were to capture, will support the knight on d7, so the e4 pawn will always be under pressure. You will see why that is important. And also, we don't want to place the bishop here. The bishop is perfectly placed on e7. If the bishop is on f6, it will be attacked by g4, g5, and then we have to bring it back. And you will realize why I mentioned knight bd7 once we play the next couple of moves. Yes, white has more space, so that's why black is keeping solid. He's not necessarily trying to gain space, but he's trying to keep his position solid. And now white plays g4, the most threatening move in the position, at least optically. And now what do you think black should play, guys? Now this is a well-known strategic idea, but what do you think black can play here? Is black to move? How do you think black can gain the advantage even here? Because white has not played in the most perfect manner, and how can black actually, for example, in this position, bishop d3 is the best move, guys, and you will pretty much follow the same plan even in that case. But this is not the best move. This is the second best move. But how can you kind of try to take over the initiative here, guys? Try to find the best move. Hi Sahil. Hi Shobit. Um, Knight takes e4 after castles. Knight takes e4 is risky. You can you we will see why. First of all, you have to understand that there can be some sacrifices with knight takes e6 also. For example, I could play something like knight takes e6, um, pawn takes e6, knight takes e4, bishop h4, and queen h5 check. And you can see how white is better. And sometimes also just something like, let's say, uh, queen takes e4, bishop e4, and f5 can also be threatening. And also knight takes e4, knight takes uh, I think e4, and let's say even if you capture here, I can still see that the weakness is on d6, and this cannot be so perfect for white. I think for black, that is, because black's pieces are not developed. Just try to look at this position. First of all, white has more space. He has all his pieces developed. He is castled, and his rook is already in play. We should not waste time capturing a pawn, because usually just out of intuition you should reject it. You should focus on developing your pieces first. Hi Ame. Rajkumar, knight takes e4 looks risky for sure, because I can imagine knight takes e6. Let's say you capture with the bishop, but this looks very risky. I think I can play this, knight takes c3, bishop takes d6, and you can see how this is not so clear. I'm not so sure about this actually, because I will. Maybe this is okay still, but I think still it's very risky, because I can see many variations here, and I would not play this, Rajkumar, for sure, because you can see how passive these pieces are, and once you're the only developed piece you have, you're trying to exchange it, and that is not a great strategy for sure. Yes, bishop takes is also possible, but that also gives up the d5 square, Pratik. So it has its own pros and cons. So I think we should first develop here, guys. I think that is the most important principle. Okay, so somebody said b5. So guys, b5 here is possible, I think, but this involves a lot of theory. I'm going to ask you to come up with another move, because here black has an amazing move which will give black the advantage even. So how do you think black can take up the advantage here? b5 will go on. It is a fight. First of all, you have to take care of bishop takes b5 there, as I think somebody mentioned. And also I mean, it is possible, but I would not go for this, because I think white would come here first. g5 is already a possibility. So there's a better move for black here, guys. Shobit says rook b8, but Shobit, rook b8 feels like too much of time, because white is threatening to attack. So you have to try to do something about it. Otherwise, after g5, then it will be very difficult somehow. Even f5 is possible. So it will be difficult then. Rook b8 looks very. It looks slow. It looks slow. Of course, if black had time, then definitely possible. Uh, yeah, after knight takes e4, knight takes e3 is possible. I saw that, I think, here. But I think the problem is that, let's say, mm let me think actually. For example, if knight takes e4, even if I just capture, bishop takes h4. But actually, even moves like queen g4 might be possible, and g7 is also attacked. So, for example, queen g4, you have to play bishop f6, knight takes, pawn takes, queen g7. I'm not really sure I want to enter this. Maybe not actually. This looks scary. And even if there was nothing, I would not really uh, exchange my only developed piece, these two pieces. So I think black should develop here, guys. Okay, Herschel thinks it's e5. Herschel, no, you should not play e5 here because this will weaken these two squares. I can imagine knight f5 coming up, attacking this, attacking this, attacking this. That would be positional suicide. So definitely not knight f5. We need to keep control of these two squares if possible. Anita, it's I'm asking about this position. What should black play here? What should black play here in this position, guys? Hi, Alpheus. Okay, b6 is also possible, but I think it's similar to b5. If you want to play this, yeah, it's similar, but there's a better move here, guys. I will just tell you a book. Actually, Pannali told me about that wizardry. I had seen the book's name. I will just tell you the book's name. This is something which I saw, which helped me a lot when I was low rated. So I will let you know the book's name. Just a moment. Yes, it's Gelfer Positional Handbook. This is something that helped me a lot. This is the book you can check out. Gelfer Positional Handbook. This maybe somebody can write it down in the chat. Maybe I can do that. Just a moment, guys. I will do that. I will write in the chat just so that everybody knows. That is the book. You can check it out, guys, because that book helped me a lot when I was around 1700, 1800. That really helped me a lot, guys. And as far as you're asking about the course, I think wizardry, if you have a rating of 1000, I would recommend the foundation course. That will be the best for you. I think you would definitely have something to learn. And I'm going to write the book's name. You can check that book out, guys. And for the course, I would recommend the foundation course for sure. Okay, Alphys knight c5 is possible. That is one move. That is actually theory. So that is a good move. But I'm going to recommend a very surprising move here, guys. And yes, d5 is important. Ame, you're absolutely correct. So that's great, Shreyash. So, guys, I'm going to recommend a very surprising move. You will be surprised, but this is well-known theory. And the move here is pawn to g5. So this is the move here, guys, and it looks very surprising, but this is just better for black, guys. The basic principle being that black does not want to castle king side, so he is ready to push his king side pawns because he does not want white to attack and he wants to gain control of the e5 square. Wizardry, you can still read that book. If you don't understand something, you can leave that topic. Regardless of your rating, you can definitely read that book. It would not harm you at all. It will help you understand. And it is kind of a mix of all topics. That's why I kind of recommended it. I learned it when I was 1800, but I think you can learn it even before. There is no clear rating that you can learn that at. Pratik, thank you. Thank you, Shreyash, if you liked it. So, yes, guys, g5, you have to remember why. In the Najdorf, you have to remember that the e5 square is very important. For example, white would like to gain control of the f5 and the d5 squares. Same way, black would like to gain control of the e5 square. If black can gain control over the e5 square, usually that is a good sign because then the knight will go to e5 and it will block the e pawn. It will also have some protection on the king side, and it will also attack the g4 pawn and have influence over the queen side. And you can see how strong the knight is on e5, and that's why g5 is the important move here. So you play g5 and there is no good response for white. So for example, in the game he captured, what else? If he plays bishop g3, I can capture and still go knight e5. So it's pretty much the same thing. So it does not really change the situation. So White captures, and now we play knight e5 first. This is the tempo because right now the queen is attacked, so there's nothing white can do. He has to move the queen somewhere. And now, what do we play, guys? It's your move. What do you think is the best move here? Pratik, there are three squares. I will try to explain again. There are three squares. This and this is important for white. If white can control these two squares, for example, if black pushes e5, then white will be better. If black can control this square, which is the square in middle of these two, then black will be better. So usually white will try to avoid black to get the e5 square, and black will avoid white gaining control of the d5 and f5 squares. So all three squares are important, but the d5 and f5 squares are important for white, and the e5 square is important for black because that is where they would like to place their pieces. Yes, Krit, Harshal, and Pratik, you're absolutely correct. You play knight e5, queen g3, and knight f takes g4. And this is the best move in the position. You capture the g4 pawn. And here, if black were to capture on h6, I would capture here, and I would play queen e7. And after queen takes, king takes, I would next just capture the pawn on h6, and bishop d7, rook h8, and you can see how the pawn on h2 will fall. And after this pawn falls, black has a solid pawn structure and white has this weak e4 pawn, and it will actually be better for black. So that's why black tried to be fancy here and he played g6, and I just captured the pawn. Why not? If it's a free pawn, let's capture it. And bishop takes, queen takes, bishop e2. So here black is a pawn up, and considering all the topics we have studied before, like let's say piece exchanges or maneuvering and all of these pieces, all of these topics, so which move do you think is best for black here practically? So what do you think black should play here, guys? It's your move. What do you think black should play? Guys, if you are here, do like this stream, and if you're here for the first time, do subscribe to the channel. So what do you think black should play here, guys? You have to find a good move and a practical move. It should be good and it should be practical. After all, you can see how black is a pawn up. His king. The problem is that king is in the center. Yes, Krit and Alpheus, you're absolutely correct. So because black is a pawn up and his king is in the center, his king is not so safe. So queen exchanges would favor black here. And that's why I played the move queen to g5, check, king b1, and queen e3. You're absolutely correct, Krit. And that way you can kind of help yourself to get a better position in the endgame. So queen takes, knight takes, rook dg1. And the only problem for black here is that somehow this knight is trapped. If you play knight here, white will capture and he will capture, and then this is weak, and suddenly because black's pieces are not developed, white is even better here. So how can you kind of get the knight back? So what is the, well, let's say what is a good move for what is possible for black here, guys? What do you think black should play? Hi Shreya, I am fine. How are you? Yes, Pratik, you're absolutely correct. I did exchange queens. So what do you think black should play here, guys? Because the knight is kind of trapped. If he manages to bring the knight back into game, I think black would be better. So how can he do that? I'm glad you like endgames, Krit. I also love endgames a lot. Harshal, g5 does not really solve the problem. First of all, bishop h5 is something you take into mind. And I think white will just go h4 here. And if you go g4, he will go h5. And pretty soon he will capture this pawn. And because black hasn't castled, I think somehow black should first also think of somehow keeping his position solid, and g5 would kind of allow white to go h4 and bishop h5. So I'm not a fan of this move. Not at g5, guys. Thanks, Shreya. I'm glad you like the thumbnail. G5 is possible, but it's risky, guys, because of h4. And you can see how the king is in the center. If you capture, even rook g7 can be a move, or even just rook takes h4 can be a move. And both cases, this pawn is weak, this pawn is weak, the knight is still trapped. So that's why maybe not g5, guys. d5, again, it opens up the position, guys. And if you capture, let's say knight takes, pawn takes, and I'm not so sure. Maybe knight f3 is possible here. You have to capture. There's nothing else. And then d5 is hanging, g6 is hanging. So maybe black can hold this, but this is definitely better for white, guys. Wizardry foundation course, basically, for example, if you start chess, first of all, you learn how the pieces move, how basic one move tactics like forks, double attacks, destroying the defender, all of that. That is a part of the beginner course. And after that, we kind of help you develop tactics, middle game, opening, and end game. The basic knowledge every chess player just must know. There is no going around it. If you do not know the basic theoretical rook end games, the basic opening principles, the basic end games, the basic middle game principles, for example, double bishops, for example, attacking play, and all this. So the absolute basics of each topic you can think of. For example, pass pawn on the queen side. For example, rook end games. For example, anything, any concept you can think of, the absolute basics will be covered in the foundation course. And to go further into depth would be covered in the rated course. So if you have an online rating of 1000, I think foundation course will be important, because that way you will develop a very solid foundation, that hence the name. And then you can actually, if you like it, you can also go on to the rated course. Sahil, I'm not sure how long the stream will be. Depends on how long the games take. Risk utha. Yes, Krit, h5 is possible. Pratik, I don't remember my highest score in survival. I haven't played it for a long time. I do remember my highest score is in the normal one is 40 something, 43 maybe. I don't remember actually. But I don't remember the survival one. I don't remember actually. I've not played for a long while. So h5 is possible, guys. But again, h3 is again possible. So you need to know what after h3. So it's still not clear, right? The knight is still trapped. Rook g3 is coming. So I'm still not sure. So what I played in the game, guys, was b5. So now I have the option of knight c4. And if white captures, I can capture with the pawn. So that way I kind of... And I also prepare developing the bishop sometimes. Not right now because e6 is hanging. And also I have the option of rook a7 and rook g7. So that is also another maneuver which helps me. So now my opponent played b3, and that makes a lot of sense because he wants to prevent knight c4. And now I played b4, guys. So I attack this knight, and if the knight moves, where would it move? If it goes to d1, I will exchange, and the only other square is a4. But now this looks very passive, and I can pretty much imagine even d5 working, bishop d7 also attacks the knight, and then the c4 square will be available. So this is definitely fine for black. So after b4, my opponent played rook g3. No, wizardry you can study at your own pace. That is the whole purpose of it, at any time during the day, any time during the week. But what I recommend is to work a little bit every day, because otherwise you will lose control, and it is very easy to kind of delay it because you will feel that I can always do it. For example, if we hold a stream, you know you have to see it right now, otherwise you may not be able to ask questions. Same way, like it's always better to do it right. Like for example, you keep a specific time, 1 hour every day, for example, and you do it every day for the best results. I feel if you skip 3-4 days, then you will forget some of the information, and then you will have to kind of revise again. Yes, Krit, black is winning. Black is winning. In that position, black is winning for sure. h5, actually, remember, it is also possible. But the problem is that it's more complicated. b5 feels a bit more normal. That's why I kind of said b5. Open positions, I think first of all you need open diagonals and open files for your pieces. That is the number one thing. Second, keep your king safe, Raj. That is the second thing. And third, try to enter your opponent's position because there are open files and diagonals. So you should try to enter into your opponent's position, use them to enter into your opponent's position, and prevent your opponent from doing so. These three principles will help you play open positions. And also, two bishops are very strong in the open position. Another principle to keep in mind. So now he plays rook g3. I take knight takes c2, king takes c2, b takes c3. And now he can capture this pawn anytime. So he just plays bishop c4 first. And I play king e7. I, of course, don't want to lose this pawn. And now king takes c3. And now I play bishop d7. So finally, my pieces are developed. I am a pawn up. My rooks are connected. And I think I am simply better. And knight f3 was played. Knight takes f3, rook takes f3, a5. Just removing the pawn from this. Rook g1, g5, h4, rook a f8, rook d3, g takes h4, rook g7, rook f7, takes, rook d6, king e7, e5, and now h3. And I'm a pawn up, but I'm basically trying to give away this pawn. I think there are better ways to win this, but even this looks fine to me. Sure, Wizardry, I hope you enjoy it. Yes, Anita, chess with Krith is very enthusiastic. Yeah, Pratik, Nigel Short doesn't believe in that. So now rook d3, h5, rook h3, h4. Now the material is equal, guys, but somehow you can look at this rook and it's passive. And also something like this can come into play. And I would like to trap the rook on the king side. And that is what happened. So b4 takes, bishop c6, and we continued this for a long while. And pretty soon I played bishop g2, and now you can realize that white is completely lost because his rook is basically completely useless. I next went on to win this pawn. I then won this pawn, and then I won the game, guys. I think we do not need to look any further because this, of course, is completely lost. Offline Alpheus, I did not understand. Offline where? Ah, you mean over the board? Of course, your FIDE rating would go plus and minus if you play over the board tournaments. If I am correctly assuming you mean over the board tournaments. So this was bishop g5, guys. Now this is a very important system, and this is the most sharpest. That's why I've kind of recommended a solid weapon against this, because white will probably have knowledge of significant amounts of theory, and once you're starting the opening, maybe you should not be forced to remember 100 moves. So it's easy to kind of go for this variation where you just play e6, bishop e7, knight bd7, queen c7, and h6, and keep a solid position, and that way you will have decent positions. So now we move to another variation, guys, because this was the most serious. That's why I covered it first. And now we look at another attacking system for black, and this is one of my, okay, it's hard to say whether it's one of my favorite games, but it's a decent game that I played, and I should have won this game. So that's why we'll try to look at it now. Okay. Over the board, yeah. I mean, it will affect your rating for sure, Pratik, and Alpheus, because you play tournaments. If you lose, your rating goes down. If you win, your rating goes up. So now the next, Krith, I think that ending is useless because the rook on h2 is stuck. I mean, I can literally dance around with my king forever and even win this game. So I think we can save time and focus on the opening. After all, we're focusing on the opening right now. So e5, e4, c5, knight f3, d6, d4, cd4, knight d4, knight f6, knight c3, a6. And this is what we kind of consider as a starting position here. Rajkumar, yes. If let's say your opponent allows you to, you should go for long castle. If let's say your opponent instead of bishop h4 had captured on f6, you can castle long. You can definitely do that. You can develop your bishop to d7. First you can go, for example, knight d7 to b6, bishop d7, queen c7, and you can castle. That is definitely possible. Yeah, Krit, I can dance with the king. So now we consider next weapon, guys, bishop e3. Now this is known as the English attack, and this is common for regardless of whether black plays the dragon, he plays. This system is common against many black systems, and that's why it is very important. And here I recommend move e5. Now, why do I recommend e5? Because black white has not really pinned our knight. In this case, we have enough time to cover the d5 square, and that's why we go for e5. And here white has to choose maximum number of games he will play knight b3, and because the knight is well placed here defending the king once the king goes here. And now we play bishop e7. Of course, that is the only square the bishop can go to. So developing your pieces which only have one square to go to makes sense because they have no choice. You remain flexible with your other pieces. Yes, Krit, e5, absolutely correct. Yeah, Pratik, I managed to win that game. Now f3. Now this is the system for white. He will go bishop e3, f3, queen d2, and longside castle. And then he will start pushing his kingside pawns and attack you. So you should be prepared. Now bishop to e6. I recommend this move order for sure. You've placed your bishop on these nice squares, and white plays queen d2, and now you castle. Because white has already not started attacking, you have time for this. Now white plays queenside castle. If white were to go for an attack, let's say with g4, he doesn't castle. You immediately break through with d5. If he captures, you capture, and I think black is better here. And if he plays g5, you play d4. Pawn takes, bishop takes, and you will get the piece back, and you will also have the bishop pair. So I think black is already better here, guys. So there's no doubt about it. But this is not white should play. White should castle. That is the only good move for white here. Krit, bishop e6 first can be played, but there is a problem. If you play bishop e6 first, there is a system I think with h3 and g4, which sometimes can be dangerous, or sometimes white can also go f4 here. So just to kind of limit white's options, we play bishop e7 because now f4 makes less sense because f5 doesn't do anything. So and once he plays f3, now you play bishop e6. So it's a better move order just to prevent any problems. Alpheus, yes, Najdorf was a legendary player. He played in the 100 years back, but he was absolutely amazing. So now queen d2, castles and castles. So this is the main position. Here black has many options. He can play knight d7, he can play b5, but the move I recommend is a5. And we will try to analyze a game that I played against a grandmaster from India, Stani GA. I don't know if you know his name, guys. It's Stani GA from Goa. I don't know which state he's from, but he's rated above 2500, and I played this against him, and I almost won, and I should have won this game, but it ended in a draw. So we'll try to look at this game, and if I can manage to almost defeat a grandmaster, I'm sure you can also do very well against higher rated players. Okay, great. If knight b7 is your favorite, but I think you will also enjoy this system because here black is already attacking. Now, here white has any system. He can play bishop b5. He can play moves like a4. But regardless of what he plays, if he plays, let's say a4, you will play knight a6, bring the knight to b4 and prepare d5 and rook c8. That will be your plan. So in the game, my opponent played queen e1. So his idea is that if I push through with a4, he will play knight c5. And because the pawn is pinned, he will gain control of my bishop and he will have the two bishops. So of course, I was not going to allow him to do that. I played the queen to c8, stepping out of this, let's say, attack. Great. If you have seen him on Sagar's stream, he is very strong. He is 2500 rated, and I did enjoy this game. Yes, both diamonds are strong. And now bishop b5, as I mentioned, he's trying to control this square and also stop a4. And I played knight a6. As I mentioned, we want to play knight b4 or knight c7 based on the situation on how white plays this. And white here played bishop to b6. And he wants to stop this pawn. He wants to capture this pawn and this is the grandmaster, so of course you have to take this his move seriously. And I played knight to c7. Even knight b4 is possible here, and even that is actually the best move in the position, but knight c7 is also good. Okay, Krit, if you have seen him there. And now he played bishop takes c7. He has to capture, guys, because otherwise he has to move the bishop back, so there's nothing else. And bishop takes, queen takes, and now a4. So what do you think black should play here, guys? Of course, I'm not expecting you to find the correct move here necessarily, because you are learning the opening. But what do you think out of principle black should play? After all, black is on the attack. So what do you think black should play here, guys? Yes, Kriti is very strong. He is strong. Nahi, Pratik, you're learning opening, so of course it's not so easy. No wizardry in Harshal, not bishop takes b3. The thing is that this weakness on the king side doesn't really mean much. White will play king b1, rook c1, and he will actually use the c file to his advantage. And now you don't have the light square bishop, and the d5 square is weak, so you cannot give up your light square bishop for sure. That is a very important piece. You have to keep this piece on the board for as long as possible. Something else, guys. Yes, Krit, you're absolutely correct. Rook c8. Because white has blocked this pawn, now the a file is not accessible. So we have to use the c file, which points towards white's king after all. So we play rook c8. And we are, of course, at some point want to play d5. And white plays king b1, which makes a lot of sense because at least c2 is not a mating square now. And now rook d8. So I am preparing my rooks to kind of break through with d5 at some point. I brought them in the center. And now he plays g4. So what do you think black should play here, guys? Is black to play? What do you think black should play? Yes, Pratik, you're absolutely correct. King will be safe on b1 or a2, and the light square bishop is very strong. You're absolutely correct. So what do you think black should play here, guys? White is trying to attack, and his next move will be g5. So what do you think white should play? Black should play, sorry. And oh, that's great, Krit. If you have seen the move, have seen the game. Harshal not at 6. Playing on this side of the board, where white is attacking, will only help white to open up a file. He will play h4, and once he plays g5, the h file will open for his rook. So you should not move pawns on this side of the board where your king is. That is a very big mistake. Yes, Krit, you're absolutely right. d5 is the move, and it does not lose a pawn, Pratik. In fact, during the game, my opponent played queen e2. If he had played g5, I could have played knight h5 and bishop f5, which is enough compensation. I could have played knight e8 is not really good here, but I could have played knight takes e4, pawn takes e4, d4, and you can see if the knight moves here, I will capture on c2 and then capture on b3. So he has to play knight d5, and here queen takes c2, king a1, and now bishop takes d5, and this is actually winning for black, of course. So this is not really possible, guys, because the c file was open. So here my opponent realized that, and he played queen e2. So he supports the c2 pawn. So now d4. So you play d4, and you attack white's knight first. So knight a2, you can look at how passive this knight is. And now it's black to play. So we looked at the important topic of maneuvers a couple of days back. and this is a critical moment. So how do you think black can improve his attack? What do you think black should play here? It's your move, guys. It's an important move because you need more pieces into attack. When you attack, you should attack with all your pieces. Krit, if you know the game, do wait with your suggestions so other people can also think. Pratik, this is possible, the move you mentioned, but I think the bishop on b5 is the irritant piece for white because it controls these two squares. So if we can remove this bishop, we'll be able to kind of attack with our pawns, and that's why knight e8 here is the best move. Because this knight is kind of going to attack this bishop, because after all the bishop on b5 stops white black's kingside play, queenside play that is, and that's why it is important to kind of remove this bishop from b5, guys. After this, f4, because of course what else, white wants to attack. Knight d6, threatening the bishop, bishop d3. So now it's another move. What do you think black should play here, guys? It's black to play. Wizardry, the course usually it is going to last for 2 months, because that is more than enough time to complete the course. But if you want to extend your course duration, that can be done. For example, we can extend it to 3 months, for example. But if you do the course seriously, it would not take you more than 30 to 40 days, not more than that. Even if you do it for 1 to 2 hours a day, that is more than enough time. So having it forever will only give you the luxury that I can do this forever, and you will not take this seriously. So that's why we have kept a rough limit of 2 months, but we can extend it if, let's say, you have a few days remaining, so that is not an issue. And if you have any doubts, you can mail us. Of course, you can ask me on the stream, but I might not remember the position. So the best way is to kind of just mail us, and we will always get back to you soon. Pratik, he has seen the game. If he has seen the game, so he obviously knows the moves, and they come naturally to him. Yes, guys, b5 is the move because you want to attack. So why not sacrifice a pawn for the attack? And after a takes b5, a4. So you are basically going full in, and you want to open up the queen side completely. And after all, you're playing as a grandmaster, so you have to be quick. And after knight b c1, queen c5 I played, c3, takes. And what do you think black should play here, guys? White's king side has queen side has opened up a bit. Now only one pawn remains. So what do you think black can play here? Pratik, here knight c4 is possible, but it might, yeah, this is definitely possible, but I think at some point you have to play b5. Without that, you cannot go ahead with an attack. So that's why it's better to just play b5 immediately, because you get to push this knight around. And after knight c1, you play queen c5, c3, takes. And now what do you think black should play? Thanks, Krit. Yes, Harshal and Krit, a3, absolutely correct, because knight is hanging. So you play a3, and my opponent played f5. I played a takes b2, queen takes b2. Now this is where I went wrong, guys. If I had played the correct move in this position, I would have won the game, because white is completely lost here. It's actually +7 for black here, +7. So I managed to spoil this, but this is completely winning. And what do you think is the best move? Maybe you guys can find it. I missed it over the board. So what do you think is the best move here, guys? Pratik, it's not not necessarily. Great, you should not. You should wait a little with your suggestions because everybody, uh, it will give everybody else a chance to solve it that way. Harshal, Rook A8 is possible. I think Rook A8 is decent. You can try to kind of play Rook FB8 next. I think Rook A8 is a good move here. You can play Rook A8 for sure, but it's not the best move in the position. Let's say. Yes, Krit is correct, guys, because Bishop C4 is the best move, and after if he takes knight takes, and this is completely lost because knight a3 is coming, so bishop c2, and now you just capture the pawn for free, and knight c4, knight a3 is coming, c3 is hanging, and this is completely lost for white. What I played in the game was wrong. I played knight c4 and white just captured it, and he somehow managed to solidify his position here. And after rook d1, bishop a5, knight d5, rook b8, b6, and here I made another mistake with bishop b6. I think queen d6, which is a weird move, was the best, but bishop b6 takes an h5, knight c4, rook takes, knight takes, and pawn takes, and this is the position we reach, which is a very unorthodox position. Hi Padmish. And now this is just equal, guys. So knight c3, queen e3, rook e1, queen d2, rook g1, queen takes h2, rook takes g4, queen e2, rook h4, g5, takes, rook h1 and takes. And here we agreed a draw because there is no way for any side to make any progress. White will next play rook e1. I will play something like queen f3. He will capture, and then I will go king g7, and this is just a draw, guys, because his king is very, let's say, shaky. He cannot move his knights away, and that's why this is just completely drawn. And I missed the win here, guys. Definitely, it was completely winning. I should have just played bishop c4 here, and that would have led to a win, I think. Raj, if let's say it's a complicated position, I think you should follow the basic principle. First of all, you look at the checks. Then you look at the captures, and then you look at the forcing moves. I think you can follow this principle. If you manage to follow this principle, I think it will limit down the possibilities you have to consider, because if a check works, you don't have to consider anything else. If a capture works, you don't have to consider anything else. And if a forcing variation works, then you don't have to calculate anything else. So you can kind of limit your choices. For example, here bishop c4 is a forcing move, and this way you kind of limit your choices. I should have followed it myself, but I was low on time and I could not do so. But this principle will definitely help you. No, Krit, that is not a win. That is just a drawn position, and that's why I did not try to go for a win there. So now I'll try to go for the next position, guys, and we'll try to understand the next position. So now we reach the starting position here. And here black has played a6. So of course there is a move for white, that is h3, and it's almost like white passes the move back to black, and he's trying to say, okay, you passed a move, I will also do the same. I will also prevent bishop g4, knight g4, and I will also prepare g4 in some cases. And this way he's trying to, let's say, play on the king side. And now e5. So again, in most cases we are going to go for this move, knight e2. So now white's plan is g4, bishop g2, castles, knight g3, and knight f5, and then bishop g5, knight d5, and he will try to attack in this manner. So we play h5, we prevent him from getting g4. This does look weak, but it would not be, as you will try to see later on. So bishop g5, this makes a lot of sense, because after all, black has just weakened the g5 square. Now h6 is not possible. So why not bishop g5? Bishop e7, knight g3. And what do you think is the best move for black here? White has just played knight g3. So what do you think is the best move for black here, guys? That's great, Pratik, if you like h3. Harshal, e5 basically in most cases is a good move unless this diagonal is very weak. Because the thing is that you want a pawn in the center to counter white's pawn, and that's why e5 is a decent move. And in this case also, for example, when we saw the position where white had played bishop g5, the knight was on f3 and not knight on e2, and in fact it was on d4. So I mean, if you had played e5 there, then suddenly knight d5, knight f5 would come. And in this case, because the knight is on e2 already, now we can take some liberties with h5 and bishop e7, knight g3. Yes, Krit, you're absolutely correct. Harshal, not d5. D5 is not possible because of just captures. So you play g6 here, guys, to prevent knight f5, and that is the main idea. H4 would lead to knight f5, and you don't want this because the light squares are weak. White can play bishop c4 or bishop d3, knight d5, and he will have domination of the light squares, and this pawn is also weak. So not this, I think. You should play g6 first, protect this pawn, prevent knight f5, and then you can later on think about other things. So bishop c4, and now bishop e6. Why not? I don't think this is a bad trade, and in fact my opponent played here bishop to b3. If she had captured, I would just capture, and this is not really bad. White can just castle on the king side. He can even just play knight c6, knight d4, and this will give him enough counterplay. Yes, wizardry, that can be done. It is no issue. If you have exams, you can definitely extend it 3 months, and usually you would not face any issue. And especially if, let's say, you have exams for 20 days, you can mail us and we will pause your membership. That way, for 20 days, your membership will be paused, and when you want to learn again, you can let us know and we will start it again. So that way, you do not lose any time. There's no issue. You're not bothering me, wizardry. So now, okay. So now bishop b3 was played in the game, guys. And now knight c6. In this case, we play knight c6 because there is no knight on f3, guys, and there is no knight on b3. So knight d4 is an excellent square available for black here, and that's why we play knight c6 instead of knight bd7. Krit, my opponent is a woman international master from I think it was Macedonia. I think she's rated around 2200. So now castles and knight d4. So basically you put your knight on this excellent square, queen d3, rook c8, knight e2, and you can see already white has to move her knight back to try and exchange this knight, but I just capture the bishop, and you can even do it this way actually and bring the knight to e6 and attack this bishop. So even this is fine. So I captured here the bishop, a takes b3, and now I play knight d7. And here my opponent had a tactical idea which she kind of overestimated for her, which did not work for best for her. She played bishop takes e7, queen takes e7, rook fd1, rook c6, and knight to b5. So this was the idea. If I capture, she will play rook a8, and of course I will have to play queen d8, which is winning for her. So here I just castled, knight takes d6, knight c5, queen d2. So because the knight is hanging, she has to right now protect this knight. So what do you think black can play here, guys? Is black to play? So what do you think black can play here? Sure, Pratik, you can take some rest. So what do you think black can do here, guys? there's an interesting tactic here for black. Uh, Rook d8. Actually, the rook d8, the problem is knight f5, guys, and the rook is hanging. And if you capture this, then knight takes e7 and knight takes c6. So rook d8 would be a blunder here. And actually, Krith has mentioned the best move, bishop takes b3. And bishop takes b3 works because if c takes b3, knight takes b3, and you attack these two, and this knight is also hanging. This is what my opponent had missed. So bishop takes b3 helps me recover the pawn, and still this knight is kind of weird here. So my opponent played rook a c1, king h7, queen b4, and here I played a5 because she cannot really capture any of these, queen a3, and rook takes d6. And if she captures on c5, I can capture on d1 and win the queen. So that doesn't work. So she captured on b3, and now knight takes e4. So I'm just a pawn up here. And queen takes a5, queen f6, rook d6, queen f2, king h2, knight takes d6, queen e5, rook e8, queen takes, and rook takes. And of course, we reach an endgame where the pawns are equal, but I will probably win one of these pawns, and then I can try to win the game. So queen g3, I just captured this and I captured the pawn on b3. And later on, I went on to win the endgame, which was very comfortable because black just is a clear pawn up, and white does not have enough counterplay here. Black can just kind of keep shuffling around, and you can see how these pawns are queening, and this pawn is not really going anywhere. King d4, king g5, f3, takes, king e4, rook f7, just protecting this pawn, and the game is pretty much over. b6, g3, and I just bring the king, and here my opponent resigned because this is dead lost. Yeah, Krit, I mean, I think the Najdorf itself as an opening is very double-edged. It's a lot of fun to play, and that's why many of these games are kind of, let's say, interesting and tactical. But they're fun to play, I think, for both colors, whether for white or black, and both sides have decent chances of winning. So guys, these were three games that I kind of showed you in three main variations. One was with bishop e3, bishop g5, and then h3. There are other variations which I might cover next time, but for today this will be it. And hi Shreya, you enjoyed these games, and do try the Najdorf. It is a very interesting opening, and I will see you tomorrow, guys. So see you, take care, and hi Siddharth, I'm just leaving. We kind of finished the stream for today, but you can kind of run through it. You can check it out, and we kind of studied the important topic of Najdorf today. So have fun, guys. Take care, and I'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye.